Alex Hogan is live at the White House, where the president is spending Easter Sunday. Alex.
Hi, John. U.S. Central Command says that the U.S. continues to strike Iran today to try to dismantle the regime. This as we're finding out more information about the remarkable rescue of that missing U.S. airman. Fox News has learned today that this airman, after the plane went down on Friday, being shot down by Iran, that this airman hiked up a ridgeline about 7,000 feet. He hid in a crevice waiting for forces to come and find him.
It's remarkable, not only the ability of our military to do something like that without any casualties, it's just mind-boggling, but look at this individual himself, this airman, actually a colonel in the United States Air Force. Look what he was able to do with his training.
First, before any of that, the CIA spread word in Iran that the missing airman had been found to distract the Iranians while American forces carried out the actual rescue. So as we've heard from Matt's reporting from earlier, the U.S. used Dreeper drones to protect the area where they believe that the weapons system officer was hiding. And one senior U.S. official says that American forces carried out large-scale strikes in the region using every tactical jet in the U.S. inventory. And that was especially important because, remember, Iran had told anyone that there would be a reward if that pilot was turned in. Now, today, President Trump is warning Iran once again that there will be new attacks this week if Iran does not open up the Strait of Hormuz, again, giving that specific deadline, even mentioning that Tuesday there could be major attacks on infrastructure. We are hearing response from Iran saying that, these attacks will not be permitted, that despite all of that, we are also hearing from the president and talking to Trey today that he expects that there could be a deal as soon as tomorrow. So a lot of questions surrounding what will actually take place tomorrow. We will get some more information on that because the president is expected to hold that press conference at 1 p.m. John.
Be interesting to hear what he has to say tomorrow. Alex Hogan at the White House. Alex, thanks.
Thanks.
So the president spoke with our own Trey by phone this morning about the chances of Iran meeting his deadline to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. He told Trey, "I think there is a good chance tomorrow." They're negotiating now. We've given them immunity from death, and we've told the people that we're dealing with who are the top people. Lawmakers in Washington also weighing in.
I think it would be in the interests of the Iranians to go ahead and make this deal. And by the way, that Strait of Hormuz, the Omanis and the Emiratis have as much claim to the Strait of Hormuz as Iran does, and they are basically breaking international law. So it's in their interest to try to make a deal before the consequences rain down on them.
Let's bring in Dr. Rebecca Grant, national security and military analyst and Lexington Institute vice president. How would you assess the chances of getting the strait reopened, given the president's threats, Dr. Grant?
Well, really, it is crunch time. And I think there's a good chance. But, John, I'm going to tell you that next target set, bridges, power plants, other strategic targets, that's already briefed, approved, and ready to go. The fighter and bomber pilots who would carry that out probably have their targets assigned. They've weaponeered it, and they're ready to take Operation Epic Fury to that next level if necessary, because control of the Strait of Hormuz is a geopolitical prize, and President Trump will not stop Operation Epic Fury until he's sure that Iran can't continue to hijack the Strait of Hormuz.
There are two schools of thought, I guess you would say, on this. One is that if you cripple the electrical grid, then it frees up the Iranian people to just absolutely, storm the Bastille, in effect, and just eliminate their government. The other school of thought is you reduce the chances that some following regime, some following government is actually able to govern a functioning country. How do you see it?
Well, those are both really good points. I think Trump's objective with this threat, though, is just to hammer the pressure onto Iran's leadership and onto the IRGC. He has to use that strong language, and really Iran only responds to military pressure to let them know that, yes, he said he's willing to make a deal. We know they're talking in the back channel, but they've got to realize they're going to lose their last vestiges of control if they don't come to the table about Hormuz.
Earlier, we played something from Brent Sadler. He made an interesting point. He says that the successful rescue of our pilot also shows what we could do with that nuclear material that's probably buried under rubble somewhere inside Iran. Listen.
This demonstrates to the Iranian leadership that we can get anywhere that we so choose and hold ground as long as we desire to accomplish a mission. Isfahan does have sensitive nuclear sites and has been the target of attacks in the past. These operations occurred not too far from there. The message should also be, not only can we rescue our pilots, but we can also go to where we need to secure nuclear equipment or the remainders of their leadership.
Imagine that point is not lost on whoever it is that's trying to run Iran right now.
Absolutely right. And Brent made a great point. And what he's saying is we have this complete, unrelenting air dominance. Yeah, you might get shot at, but nothing will stop the U.S. And that means we can go in and basically hold territory, keep Iranian forces back with air-delivered firepower, with surveillance, and carry out whatever operation we need to for a limited period of time, whether that's the fantastic rescue of the F-15E crew members or taking other steps. We are able to go in there and take and hold territory to achieve an objective if we need to. That's what that means, and it's really significant for the IRGC to know that.
Congressman Mike Turner, Republican of Ohio, says the fact that they are holding the Strait of Hormuz hostage sort of shows what was behind, what's the impetus for this war in the first place. Listen.
The straits are going to be open, and it certainly is important to occur. But you can't say, well, as long as the straits are open, we can let them continue to be a power that marches toward being a nuclear power, or that continues to develop missile technology that can threaten the United States and threaten Europe and continue to perfect long-range missile technology. You have to be able to address this great sponsor of terrorism, this the global power ambition that Iran has.
It would be nice to think that after this is all said and done, their global power ambitions are in the dust.
They will be in the dust. And here, Iran made a huge mistake attacking all their neighbors. What needs to happen in Hormuz is no more drone attacks on any shipping that's stuck up there in the strait. They've hit, maybe close to 24. And then we need to not have Iran turn this into some kind of toll booth. It's got to be international free flow. And I'm going to tell you, who else is watching here is China. They just watered down a UN resolution on Hormuz. But what China will see is it's the U.S. military that has the power to control what goes on in the Strait of Hormuz. And as a geopolitical outcome, I like that.
Dr. Rebecca Grant, it's good of you to come on. Thanks.
Thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.